Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar, and as always I am your host, and it's a quiet week, of course, with international football taking precedence. Rangers won't be back until Saturday when we get back to league action on the back of 3 league wins for the first time in what feels like forever. I'm very much looking forward to getting back to Ibrox, where we've got 3 home fixtures coming up the following week: Livingston, Braga and Falkirk, looking for 3 wins to continue some momentum as we try and rebuild this season. Well, it is the international week, but we don't like to leave you with nothing to listen to here on Heart and Hand. So what we do is we go to our Chief Executive subscribers over on Heart and Hand on Patreon and asked for their questions. These were the ones they came up with. I will do my very best to answer them, and of course want to hear your opinion as well. That's why we have the comments here and on YouTube, etc, etc. But before we get started today, I just want to point you in the direction of the Edmiston House website, where you can buy tickets to the Fan Media Takeover Night. That's a show featuring myself from Heart and Hand, Stevie Clifford from Four Lads Had a Dream, and CJ Novo, internet sensation. And we'll be taking to the stage on January the 9th, Friday, January the 9th. And we'll be joined by special guest Mark Haitley. Tickets are £20, and they make the ideal Christmas present for lazy people who don't like to do much. All you need to do for this is buy the tickets and then tell them, hey, look, tickets, and send them the tickets on Christmas Day. It couldn't be easier. Just go to Edmiston House, and I'll put the link up in today's show description as well. But come and see us. We're very much looking forward to it, and it should be a good laugh. I'm sure those of you who remember the shows that the three of us did together on here will remember, and very much looking forward to it. And if you don't want to come for us, come and meet Big Mark, proper genuine Rangers legend. Right, let's get on with the questions then. This one from Jordan Murray. He says, the local coach with Rangers knowledge chat seems to have died down. Is this still happening? And if so, who would you like to see come in? It is still happening, as far as I know. And Kevin Thelwell, in his interview at the weekend, he referred to it and said, watch this space. I don't think it's quite as urgent a priority as maybe we feel, or supporters, or maybe that it sounded like to us. Danny Rowe was very clear about it when he came in, that it is something he wants to do, but he wouldn't even think about it until this international break. So then it's a question of meeting all the candidates, and there can be difficulties there because we've seen Stephen Davis, who of course has been mentioned as a candidate for this particular position, but he is off with Northern Ireland at the moment during the international break. So there's that. The names that have been mentioned so far: Lee Wallace, who I don't know much about from a coaching point of view, but I have a great deal of admiration for as a person. I think the Rangers treated him horribly. I always remember my debt of gratitude to Lee Wallace as he stayed. And we live in a cynical age. We live in an age where people look for a negative. And I remember at the time people saying, well, he only stayed because he wouldn't get the money down south, or he didn't want to move, or whatever. I don't care. Right? Actions v words. He stayed. And at a time when we really needed that continuity, when everyone was all over us, he stayed and gave us a link. And I admire him greatly for that. And I know the work he's done as well with Erskine and the Rangers Supporters Erskine appeal. And he just comes across as a very admirable guy. So you can disagree with me. But that's my take on him. So certainly wouldn't be against that. Stephen Davis, huge admirer of, obviously, Northern Irish family, so I've always had a fondness for our Northern Irish players, and he's just everything I want in a Ranger. Stephen Davis too, but Stephen Davis, because it's, firstly, he's very, very good at football, or he was very, very good at football, but secondly, his manner, the way he goes about things, he's really calm. He's been there and done it, and he has taken the steps on his coaching. The next name that's been mentioned are people who've been there before, Neil McCann and Billy Dodds. No problem with either of those. Neil McCann, very intelligent guy. As anyone who's, you've seen him on TV, obviously, but he's a very intelligent guy. Tough as well, really, really tough. Doesn't suffer fools and doesn't stand for nonsense. And Billy Dodds is actually, from speaking to some of the players who trained under him last season, is actually an excellent coach, and they were all really impressed. And for example, if you remember last season, towards the end of the season, we actually started scoring from set pieces for the first time in forever, and those were Billy Dodds' ideas and work. So I wouldn't have an issue with any of those four. I don't know if any other names have been thrown into the hat. Rhys McCabe was an interesting one, bit of left field one there, and that's maybe a younger coach. Are you thinking in terms of long-term succession maybe and growing your own? He, of course, has had that experience at Airdrie. Remarkably young age in modern football. You don't tend to see that anymore. The argument falls down, because I am kind of judging these people on personality and Rangers' careers. Let's be honest. That's what I'm doing. And that isn't the right way to do it. And I understand that. And I have faith, though, that Danny Rule will not do that. That Danny Rule will be looking for a bit more than that. He'll be looking at their coaching chops. And they've all gone into it and they all have experience in it in some degree. It is about skill set then. What would they bring to the table? But also I think it's chemistry with Danny Rule and his staff. It needs to be somebody you get on with or can work with, because you're going to be working with them every day. So common sense dictates that you need to get a good vibe when you all get together. You need to have similar ideas about the way you want football to be played as well, because if you've got somebody who's constantly going off in another direction and doesn't believe in what you're trying to do, I mean, this is not unique to football, this is any workplace. Even here at Heart and Hand, if I've got somebody who says, no, we should totally take this in a different direction, it's probably not going to work. And the person who sets it has to be the boss, has to be Danny Rule. So, yep, the four names mentioned, as I say, the 4 or 5 names mentioned, I don't have a problem with any of them. But as I say, am I judging it the right way? Probably not. What I will say is definitely when you speak to people within the game, the guys that we've mentioned do have decent reps. Kenny Miller's also been mentioned, although that's gone quiet. He's just back, I think, from America, where he was out coaching. So he'd be an interesting one as well. We'll have to wait and see what Danny Rule, but it'll be the person Danny Rule is most comfortable with, the one that he feels can bring the most to the role, because it's not a mascot. It's a paid member of staff. We're investing in this person and we're letting this person into the holiest of holies. We're letting them into our dressing room and working with the players who are the key asset at any football club. So you can't just give it out on the grounds of, we'll just be nice and give somebody a job. That's not the right way to go about it. But yeah, I'd be interested in that. I don't think it's quite the kind of panacea that some fans seem to cling on to, because we've had these guys, in the last 10 years and it hasn't worked out. Not these guys specifically, but we've had this idea has been done in the past and it doesn't always work. If it was that easy, every club would do it. And not every club can be successful at it. So you need to get the right guy. But as I say, I've got faith that Danny Rule will be looking at it in a bit more depth than I did, I suppose. But, unless you're a football person and you work with these people, our knowledge is automatically limited. But in terms of their personalities and the way that they conduct themselves, then, don't have a problem with any of those. Derek Johnston says, David, you've lived and breathed this for 20 years now, mate. It's madness to write that out. Yeah, fucking aged me as well. But do you feel the club could do more in terms of an open and transparent comms strategy? Currently, we've used these breaks as a chance to drop the odd thing out, but we rarely hear the what and why of key figures in the club, in my opinion, as in what they are doing within the role and why the role breeds the most successful football club we are all desperate to see once more. My personal opinion is that we really need to get better at the storytelling aspect. I think we have a semblance of a plan at the moment, but we are still struggling with actually explaining to the wider support what that is, why we chose it, and where we want it to take us. What's your thoughts, bud? Story's a good word, actually, Derek. Story's a really good way of putting it. And again, it's not unique to football or to our club. It's business in general. You want to have that's what goes out to the public. And the thing with Rangers is that it can be very difficult because it can be so reactive, because it comes down to results. Everything at the club comes down to results. When the club's doing badly, then God, I feel for people who have got targets in hospitality and whatnot, because it's not their doing that people lose interest and don't want to do it anymore. It's the team are being so bad. So there's that aspect of it. And I think sometimes history weighs quite heavily on people within those roles, because we're coming off an unsuccessful period. Hopefully we're moving out of it, but there's a lot of anger out there, and I think justifiably so, by the way. So the issue that you have is that we've now had a number of years, although it's new people, we've had a number of years where we've heard things from the club that then haven't turned out to come true, and there comes a point where a phrase I hear a lot from listeners is, action, not words. I'm judging on what I see, not on what I hear. I can't argue with that. So it is difficult. The other side of that coin is that doesn't mean, though, that you can avoid it. We've only heard from Andrew Kavanagh, for example, when we've had to sack a manager. And that seems easily avoidable to me. But there's only so much you can do as a PR person, or as a comms person, because you can't make them do it. They own the club and do what the hell they like. And do what the hell they like. So I remember years ago, as you mentioned there, this is maybe, it's longer than that, probably 18, 19 years ago, sitting in a meeting with Martin Bain, complaining about the club's PR. And I said to him, why don't you hire, an outside, respected body that could come in and make a difference? And he pointed to David Murray's office. And he said, the issue is I could have the best, most expensive PR company in Britain, and the man through there would ignore them because he thinks he's a PR genius. And that's the thing. You can't make powerful people deviate from their course, from what they want to do. It's just not something that's possible, unfortunately. So there is that as well. I think in Scotland, it has been difficult for Rangers because we don't have a neutral audience out there. We don't have people who are coming to this with an open mind. And that took me years to realise, incidentally. When I used to complain about the SFA or the media coverage, I remember very, very specifically, when I used to complain about the media coverage, it was almost like they can't know that we're upset because they wouldn't do this. The sense of fair play kicks in. And so if we can only tell them that, we're not happy with the way that we get covered, they'll go, sorry lads, never realised, and they'll change it. And then when, I met with editors and stuff, they do know, they just don't care. And that sort of changed my opinion on it, because there's a lot of closed doors that you're pushing at. Doesn't mean that you don't push. Where I think it's changed is obviously the traditional media's ability to influence has diminished hugely now. People may still use certain traditional media less and less, but they don't believe it, and they don't think that it's neutral, and they don't take it all on face value anymore. That's gone. That aspect of it is gone. So now, if you actually look closely at the media, what they tend to do is follow discourse rather than lead it, which they used to do. Nowadays, they follow what we're doing now, what we're discussing here, you and I, and the listeners, what the comments on this are, what the fans' opinions on social media are. They see which way the wind is blowing and they go with that, and they tailor their articles towards that to get clicks, because that's their business model now. It's changed from the old days when they were selling, God knows how many papers on a daily basis. They're not doing that now. Now they need clicks, and to get clicks, it needs to be something that people are already interested in, already discussing. But that's an opportunity then for the club, because that means now you can talk directly to your support without these gatekeepers. And that wasn't the case when you and I were growing up, Derek. I mean, that's only become a thing in the last 10 years or so. And now, as I say, that there aren't these arbiters of what should get out to, what the line should be from journalists, how they're all going to phrase this, how they're all going to report this, what framing they're going to give it. That doesn't happen anymore. Or if it does, it doesn't work. So Rangers have got the opportunity to start telling that story directly to the audience, which is a big opportunity and one that really hasn't existed before. And it's something they have to get better at. Also, I think there's a case of unlearning some habits, which is that Rangers have been firefighting for so long and reacting to things for so long that it must be hard to avoid that bunker mentality of, that this is what it is. And it is an evolution to move from we go around putting out fires to actually we can go around and prevent fires in the first place. And that, I think, is something Rangers need to get better at. And that is your nirvana, that's your dream scenario. But it is what they need to do. And they need to get better at that, at spotting potential issues and solving them before they happen, rather than waiting until, as I say, they're on fire and then putting it out. But there's been so much of that, and it isn't helped by the results. If you look at, for example, this weekend, Kevin Thelwell interview, there was nothing wrong with the interview. It's fairly standard stuff, and I'm not going to criticise it in any way because it should, be something that Rangers do, and I'm glad they're doing it. And I can't sit here month after month for years now saying Rangers should engage more with the supporters, and then when they do, complain about it. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite there. What I'll say is, a lot of us would watch that and go, very good, you still wasted 20 million in the summer. And that's his problem, is that the only thing now that can change opinion on Kevin Thelwell is the players getting better. So that's kind of, out with the control of PR. I think there also has to be an acceptance. The old song, nobody likes us, we don't care. Well, there's times where we do care, I think it's fair to say. There are a lot of people in Scotland who don't like us. And that's no great insight on my part. That's no great reveal. But you're never going to change them. So what you need to do is stand up to them and accept that, look, we're never going to win these people round, but nor should we cower from them, because they're never going to be fair with us. They're not coming at us objectively. They're starting from a perspective of, we hate you and we want you to get punished and be in trouble, and we should be ready for them. And that means, by the way, sometimes standing up even when you don't necessarily think that you're in the right, but you do it anyway, and you fight. And I think sometimes we're so concerned about doing the right thing. Do the right thing for us, right? That's the thing. Do the right thing for us. Don't worry about as I said, there's not this group of people out there that we need to convince. In Scotland, people either love Rangers, hate Rangers, or don't care. There are three camps. There are no other ones. There's nobody waiting to be persuaded. So fight your corner at all times and worry about it later, would be my take on that. Good question. Graham Roy, when do you think we'll have a proper grown-up conversation about the transportation system for Ibrox? On match days, unused train station, lack of parking, subway shutting down at a certain time regardless of what's on, etc. We have the best location of the major stadiums in the city and don't take advantage of it. Do you ever see a time with the club working with the government or council to upgrade this and give proper modern infrastructure? No. Frankly, I don't. There are so many issues in Glasgow at the moment, and this is way down the chain, and that's even before the attitude of the council towards Rangers Football Club. But they're not going to spend money on this. It's like a lot of things in modern life, and it'll do. That's their attitude. That'll do. And their view is, if it's difficult for you or I to get to the game, they don't give a fuck. They don't care. It's that simple. So no, I really don't. Unless Rangers were willing to stump up all the money, which would be in the millions, and an awful lot of millions. Maybe, lobbying and whatnot, you never know, you can always change things, but that ain't instant, and that would be a while. And then you're going to get objections because it's Scotland and it's Rangers. You're going to get objections. You have to weigh through that and fight through that. So you're talking years. I mean, like the subway doesn't just affect. It's a fucking joke, Major city, and the subway closes at 11 o'clock, 6 o'clock on a Sunday. I mean, what? It's just an absolute nonsense. It's absolutely ridiculous. And public transport, which I take a lot because I don't drive. I've never learned how to drive, so I'm a public transport boy. Is useless. It's really bad. Overpriced and rubbish. Parking at Ibrox is going to get worse and worse. No doubt about that as well. The whole thing's a mess. But a bigger issue than just football, and I'm sorry to anyone out there who's very politically minded and a big fan of Glasgow. I mean, I look at Glasgow. Glasgow is, my side. I'm wee boy from Ayrshire, right? Heck for the sticks. And my mum always tells me a story. When I was 5, she took me up to Glasgow. She said, you just walked about with your eyes like saucers. Like, wow. And the following week, she took me to Edinburgh, her and my dad. And she said, you were bored, and you were like, when are we going home? Can we stop in at Glasgow again? And she said, I always knew you would be fascinated with it, which I was right from a young age. And I lived there for 25 years. And I love it. It's my city, but not living there now because, very middle class and fucked off to the country. God, that sounds terrible, but it's true. It's what I've done. You get a certain age, you want a garden and everything, and you get more bang for your buck out here out in the wilds. And I go up to Glasgow now, and it breaks my heart, the way the city looks. And people are free to disagree, but I'm going on what it was like when I was younger, when it was thrumming with life and activity, and I just don't feel that way now. And then, they're not the only city because death of traditional shopping and whatnot, but it's not as good as it was, in my opinion. And you're perfectly entitled to write this off as me. I'm an old man shouting at clouds. Absolutely get it. But, there's a lot of things that need fixed, I think, in Glasgow to make it the city that it should be, that it can be, and that it was not that long ago. It was absolutely, buzzing with activity. And I know because I was, out in it 6 nights a week for 15 years. And I love the place. And I love the place, I love the people, everything about it, and I just think it's being let down at the moment. And I'd love to see it get back to what it was. Because I remember, I'm sure you do as well, Graham, the regeneration of it from the late 80s onwards, and it was wonderful. So I think we're way down the list, in all honesty. Cue me getting dozens of don't send me angry emails about David, I hear about politics. I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about the city that we play in. So vote for whoever you want, I don't care. But Sandy McClarty, hi David, hope you're well. Bit far off given how much we'll have the same squad. Do you think Danny can get a turn at this squad for the new year old firm, and how crucial could Dujon Sterling be for that match, providing he's match fit? Dujon gives you a lot of options, certainly in terms of cover. I've liked him in midfield. Long term, he sees himself as a centre back, and he put in a good shift that game. He got injured against Bilbao, he's a good option to have back in the squad, because I think he can give you a bit of power in the middle of the park that we don't have. We've got quite a wee midfield, and I think Dujon can supply some physicality that we don't have. But as I say, long term he sees himself as a centre back, and certainly has the attributes to play in it. I don't know, you can't talk, it's 6 weeks away, 8 weeks away, so there's a lot of football to be played before that. I tend to just look at each game as it comes, kind of thing. And I think that's the important thing, not to look too far ahead. So we'll see what happens in that match, but I think tactically Danny Rose not somebody who's stuck on a certain way, and I think he will adapt for each match. I don't think that this is the strongest Celtic team we've seen in a few years, or I think it's fair to say it isn't, but they might get a boost from the new mic. You never know. So there's so many things that need to happen before then. And if Rangers go on a great run before then, we're going into it, brimming with confidence and playing well. Either team could go on a bad run before that and then to a different thing. So I think it's too far away to tell. Gary Stanfield said, I wonder if Thelwell threw out the fairly active line as a casual response to a question regards January transfer business. Should we expect serious approach to January window or rule its final say? According to Thelwell, Kavanagh says they now get it. Hopefully we're now looking at serious professionals with a bit of determination and not what the Thelwell dynasty have served up so far. Yeah, I mean, well, let's face it, there's needs all over the team, never mind the squad at the moment. There are needs all around there, and if you can get the players in, even in January, if it is just short term, if it's just a loan or whatever, and you know, World Cup years are always interesting, I think, for loans, because you've got players who want to go to the World Cup who may not be playing for their clubs. So loans that normally wouldn't be available become available if you're clever about it. They should have learned, because I think you will not convince me that they didn't come in and think if they've done well in England, they're bound to do well up here because, you know, it's only Scotland. I don't believe for a second that wasn't part of their thinking. Maybe unconsciously, but there was that arrogance, I think, of it's only Scotland. You know, how hard can it be? And then, like a lot of people before them, they've discovered it is hard. Yes, it's maybe not the highest quality league in the world, but it's quirky and it's got its own way of operating. And if you don't know that, then you're going to get what we got. So I think it's quite interesting that he's saying this. I would expect Rangers to do some business. I never expect you're not going to get like 8 signings, 10 signings in a January window. You're just not. It's not going to happen. That's the reality of the situation. But I would expect to see a few in and maybe a few out as well. I think maybe a few out as well, and that obviously opens up space. But even if it is just short-term things like striker, we're going to need a reliable striker. I know we have 3, but at the moment, none of them are really cutting the mustard. Danilo has probably been the best of them, really, but he was third choice last season for a reason. And Miovski and Chermiti have both been dreadful so far. You know, Miovski's probably got away with it a bit more because the focus is on Chermiti because of the money. But, I mean, Miovski's been, if anything, worse. So, yeah, either they need to start finding their form or we've got to do something. We've got to bring somebody in because at the moment our striking options are so weak. So there's an area straight away. I'd love to see a passing number 6. A sort of Joe Rothwell who can run in there. I think that would give us a lot more balance in the side as well. And for the love of Christ, get a left back in, right? Just a left back. That's just common sense. If you or I were building a squad on Football Manager, the first thing we'd do in January is go, we need a fucking left back. So yeah. Stephen Burnside, hi David, a lot has been made of the manager making do with the current squad till we get to January. In all honesty, when was the last good January window we had, regardless of whether Thelwell's in charge of recruitment? I'm not sure we can expect much. When was the last good window we had, full stop? That's been a huge part of the problem, Stephen. Now you're right, you're not going to get wholesale changes. What we can only hope for is that Danny gets in 2 or 3 players in the positions that he's identified as being the most needing, and I think that's important. And like I say, you don't have to go and spend millions in January. Go out and see what's on loan to buy, even, but go out there and test the market and see what's out there. But I'm sure he'll have 2 or 3 key positions where he's like, look, I can get by in these other areas, but I absolutely need this, and this. And then that's what you do and you get by, and then the summer you can kind of reassess and whatnot. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the way I'll go about it. Gary Buchanan says, if you had to pick 3 names to include into the Hall of Fame that's not in it, who would they be? That's an interesting one. And I don't have the list of who's in it automatically to hand. A big thing that I've always wanted is a non-playing Hall of Fame. The people who've helped the people who've helped make Rangers what they are without the adulation that comes from being a player. Straight off the top of my head, Tiny, Jimmy Bell, and Colin Stewart are 3 of the people that straight away I'd be thinking about putting in there. You could Campbell Ogilvie is another one. David Holmes, should be in any Rangers Hall of Fame. He just should. So they've never done this. And in the case of David Holmes, I'd love them to do it when he was here to receive the honour, really. So David Holmes would definitely be one. As I see Jimmy Bell, I mean, obviously, but tiny, so much service given to the club. And I think it's a nice thing to do, and I think the supporters would like it as well. So that would be the key one for me. In terms of players, I'm not a great believer in current players getting in. I don't think you should get into your career's over. Just don't. It's probably, you can make a million arguments either way, but that's just a personal thing for me. And I think most of the players that I would have said, that they should be an RN, in all honesty, because we've had so many, it's been a business thing rather than just like an actual Hall of Fame. So I think pretty much everybody who should be in is in. I think we've already, discussed the fact that over the years there's been people put in for maybe a couple of seasons at Rangers. So should you have tougher criteria? I don't know. So that for me would be the key issue. Rona Bluebell says, David, what is the financial fair play spend situation for January? Can we go mad and splurge 20 million? We have decent FFP headroom. Do we have the actual cash to go and spend 20 million is a different thing entirely. And again, where would it come from? So they can't just give you, 20 million and you go and spend kind of thing. That's when the FFP thing would kick in. So it'll depend. Plus, I think they would rather hold out, in terms of the finances until summer when better value. You've heard all the arguments a million times. But we've definitely got room to go and do 2 or 3 decent bits of business, minimum. So I think that opportunity is there, and we'll see. Neil Buchanan, if any signings are made in the window and not from the Thelwell's natural hunting ground of the EPL and Championship, but look like they can be related to Rule or his connections, then surely that does nothing to bolster the credibility in the eyes of the fans or indeed Kavanagh. Even if they are successful and the Thelwells have to make the transfer happen, the glory will go to Rule, but equally if they don't work, the failure will be further heaped on Thelwell and co. Yes, you're right, Neil, and it's maybe not fair, but that's the reality of the situation. And that's the job, isn't it? You will get that pressure that will, come down on you, and you maybe don't always get the glory. You maybe don't always get the the praise that you're due. I'm sure Ross Wilson was very good at that, wasn't he? He would turn up and be front and centre at the big signings, but then at the AGM, well, I don't make the signings. Okay, well, who does? So yeah, look, the end of the day, Farewell's and I go right back to the start. The only thing that can save his reputation with supporters is the fact that the players that he signed have to come good. And for a few of them, there aren't many signs of that at the moment. And we've got to hope that they improve, from our point of view, supporters' point of view, and he needs them to improve, needs them to deliver a bit more. Clearly he's still well thought of by the owners in terms of the fact, we've just brought in an academy head, ex-Wolves, we're bringing in a set-piece coach, ex-Wolves. In all fairness, certainly the set-piece guy, I think he's come from Lincoln, and they scored the most set-piece goals than any team in the league, or any team in England, actually, in all 4 divisions. So, there's that. But I think that you get judged on success at Rangers, and at the moment we haven't been successful. And let's not kid ourselves, this was a record bad start this season. This wasn't just a bit disappointing. That this was the arse completely fell out the thing. So of course it's going to be criticism, and of course you're going to catch it. That is the job. But all he can do is try to increase the success. At the end of the day, he seems to have the support of the higher ups, so it doesn't really matter what you or I think. If they want to keep him in situ, they will. I go back to when Martin Bain was there. He was not popular with us, but Murray liked him there, so he stayed. But in Thelwell's case, the summer window was him, and he cannot avoid that scope. And in January, I'd like to see Danny Rule more involved in it. I think we all would. But again, if they all come in and they're duds, then blame will be heaped on Thelwell, because he doesn't have the track record of success with us, and until he gets one, he's always going to be liable for criticism. And after every bad performance, he's going to cop it. After every time Chermiti has a nightmare, he's going to cop it. That's just the reality, and we can debate whether that's right or wrong, but it doesn't change the fact. So it's the hole he's dug for himself. So he'll need to sit in it for a while and hope he can find his way out. Right then, folks, that will do me for today here on the flagship. I will, of course, be back next week after we take on Livingston at the weekend. If you want a lot more Rangers stuff, then go to patreon.com/Heart and Hand. Sign up, just $1.99 per month, and you can get up to 5 shows every single day on all things Rangers, plenty of other football, and some pop culture stuff as well. My thanks to our producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and my thanks to you for listening. We'll be back next Monday. Until then, have a great week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.